Picture this: a floating fortress, a city of steel cutting through the ocean. For almost a century, we're talking about the American aircraft carrier, the undisputed king of the seas. It's been the ultimate symbol of military might. But today, that very symbol of invincibility, well, it has a giant target painted on its back. You see, for decades, this was the tool that let the United States project its power anywhere on Earth, no questions asked. But that era of just showing up and dominating, it might be over. The supposedly unsinkable carrier is now facing down two brand new and very serious threats that are completely rewriting the playbook for naval warfare. So, to really get a grip on what's at stake, you first have to appreciate the sheer mind-boggling scale of one of these things. An American aircraft carrier isn't just a ship. It's basically a moving slice of American territory, a true titan of the modern age. $13 billion. That's the sticker price for just one Gerald R. Ford-class carrier. And get this, that number doesn't even count the planes, the escort ships, or the thousands of people who run it. It's a national treasure invested in a single piece of military hardware. And that's how many people live and work on board. 5,000. It's literally a floating city with one single-minded purpose: to project overwhelming force anywhere, anytime. When one of these shows up off a coastline, it's not just a military move, it's a massive political statement. For 80 long years, these giants have ruled the oceans, all based on one simple idea: they are untouchable. But what happens when that idea, that fundamental assumption, gets shattered? Well, halfway across the world, Chinese engineers were working on a weapon designed to do just that. We're not talking about a nuke or another giant ship. We're talking about a missile built for a single world-changing purpose. And you have to understand, this isn't just about sinking a ship. It's about sinking an entire way of thinking about war. If a $13 billion floating fortress can be knocked out by one weapon, the entire global balance of power can shift in the blink of an eye. It's called the DF-21D. Its nickname? The Carrier Killer. And yeah, its design is a total game changer. See, before this missile, the idea of hitting a fast-moving ship in the middle of a huge ocean with a ballistic missile, well, most experts thought it was basically impossible. So what makes this thing so scary? It's a triple threat. First, its range, over 1,500 kilometers. That forces a U.S. carrier to stay so far away from land that its own jets have a hard time being effective. Second, its speed. It's hypersonic, coming down on its target at many times the speed of sound, giving you just seconds to react. And third, and this is the real kicker, it's smart. It uses a whole network of satellites, drones, and AI to track and steer itself to hit a moving, dodging target. This analogy just nails the strategic nightmare here. A DF-21D missile costs maybe a few $1,000,000. You compare that to the carrier's $13 billion price tag, and the economics are just terrifying. It means a relatively cheap weapon can take out a country's most expensive and powerful asset. Okay, so that's the high-tech sniper shot threat. But it's not the only one. Over in the Middle East, Iran has been cooking up a totally different kind of strategy, one that's less about fancy technology and more about using geography as a weapon. And in some ways, it's even scarier. It's a strategy called A2/AD. That stands for anti-access/area denial. The goal isn't to beat the U.S. Navy in a head-to-head battle. Iran knows that's a losing game. No, the goal is to make the price of just entering their neighborhood, like the Persian Gulf, so incredibly high that you won't even try. So you see the huge difference here, right? China is playing the role of the sniper, one perfect, devastating shot from a long way off. Iran's strategy is the complete opposite. It's about overwhelming you with chaos. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So let's paint a picture. A U.S. carrier tries to squeeze through the Strait of Hormuz, a perfect natural choke point. And then, bam, everything happens at once. Swarms of suicide drones fill the sky. Missiles launch from hidden spots on the coast. Naval mines pop up in the water. And dozens of speedboats and mini-subs seem to come out of nowhere. That is saturation warfare. It's designed to completely overwhelm your defenses and your ability to even think straight. Now, of course, the U.S. isn't just sitting around waiting for this to happen. Losing a carrier would be way more than a military loss. It would send a shockwave across the entire globe. So the Pentagon is spending billions to get ready for this new kind of fight. You know, a carrier never travels alone. It's always at the center of a protective bubble of destroyers and cruisers. And the heart of that defense is something called the Aegis Combat System. Think of it as a super brain that can track hundreds of incoming threats at once, coordinating everything from interceptor missiles to systems that jam enemy signals. On paper, it's supposed to be an impenetrable shield. But here's the question that keeps Navy planners up at night. This is the core fear of saturation. No matter how good your shield is, every defense has a breaking point. A destroyer only has so many interceptor missiles it can fire. It can't stop 200 things coming at it at the exact same time. Even if you shoot down 99% of them, that 1% that gets through, well, that's all it takes.
This new reality is forcing a total revolution in military thinking. For 100 years, the philosophy was to concentrate all your power into a few giant, valuable warships. But now, that just makes you one big, fat target. The new idea? Dispersal. Spread out. Instead of one giant, the future is a whole network of smaller, cheaper, and even autonomous ships and subs. It makes the whole fleet more resilient, because losing any one piece doesn't mean you've lost the game.
So what's the big takeaway here? We are watching a historic shift in how wars are fought. The old ways of measuring power are being completely overturned by a new set of rules. You know, military history is just a long story of giants getting taken down by new ideas. The castle wall fell to the cannon. The battleship fell to the aircraft carrier. And now, the carrier itself is facing its own moment of truth, its own disruptive technology. For a century, military power was something you could see and weigh. It was about who had the biggest ships, the most tons of steel. The visual of power was power. But that whole era is fading fast. Because today, true power is often invisible. It's in the code that guides a missile. It's in the speed of data zipping down from a satellite. It's in the intelligence of the algorithm that connects it all together. The next war won't be won by the biggest navy, it'll be won by the smartest one. And the stakes really could not be higher. This whole thing is a massive technological arms race, a high-stakes game between the hunter and the hunted, the missile and the shield, and whoever comes out on top will probably define who holds power for decades to come.
The aircraft carrier has been the symbol of an empire's strength. But history has a funny way of reminding us that an empire's fate can turn on a dime. Sometimes in the few seconds it takes a missile to find its mark. So the question is no longer about who has the biggest fleet, but who can build the smartest weapon first.